Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mind Refinery podcast, provided to you by us, the Mind Refinery, creators of content, aggregators of popular culture, and a place where creatives thrive. I'm your host, Kyle Bodanis. Today we continue our look at the video games that defined our lives with our favorite video games from middle school. What you are about to hear is part one of this epic conversation. Before we get started, if you haven't checked out and subscribed to the Mind Refinery YouTube channel, do it. Lots of great content, our culinary series Plated, new episode of This Is Cosplay, short films, podcasts, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for all your Mind Refinery news. And now, without further ado, here's the show. Okay, here today to discuss the video games that defined our middle school careers are Andrew Lanza,
Hey.
Omar Morse,
How's it going?
and the Persian Prince himself, Billy
Yo,
Hoosh.
what's up?
What it do?
Last time we went through the epic discussion about grade school. Obviously, when you move to middle school, things change. Now you're being ignored by the opposite sex or the same sex. And a question, was anybody here smoking weed by the time they went to middle school? Lanza, for sure.
Wow, that's a personal question. I think I smoked some roaches in grade 8.
You went straight to roaches, eh?
That doesn't count.
Straight
Like
to
my
it.
friend who ironically
You just went
I
right to
played with.
burnout?
Ironically, my third choice, I played with him. That's how I played the game. He swiped some roaches off of his cousin, and we smoked them in the schoolyard after school one day.
Omar. No, you're like my family, man. You're Jamaican. I'm Macedonian. Our families would beat us if we smoked before.
I would have got my ass kicked, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was around it, so I think I got a little bit of secondhand, you know.
Yeah?
But other
Contact
than
on
that, yeah, I was pretty.
So I feel
pretty.
about members of this company.
Yeah.
So for us, can you define middle school exactly? Because that seems
Kind
to
of
be
a Canadian thing, right?
no,
Middle
it's an
school?
American term.
Oh.
You know what? Honestly,
Really?
it is an American.
Yeah.
It is an
It's
American term, and
term.
I
I was
went.
confused.
And when I went,
You
to
didn't
a
have middle school?
We never called it middle
No,
school.
you went
What'd
to
you call
you
it?
went to grade 8, right?
It was
We call it senior public
yeah,
school.
exactly.
Okay.
Went to grade 8.
Yeah. So what happened was I lived in the U.S. During this time, a little south of Chicago, and we had I went to Pioneer Junior High School in Dunlap.
Junior high.
So it was
Junior
grade
high,
7 and
wow.
8, but also
Junior high, yeah,
had I
that's
stayed
what they
in,
call
but
it.
also there's middle school called 6, 7, that are 6, 7, and 8. So
That's what I had. That's what I had. 6,
Okay.
7, and 8.
In Toronto, I found that too. For
That's
example, a
what
lot
I
of my
had.
friends who are from the city went to Comer Valley, which is 6, 7, 8, Bayview, all these schools.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I went to 7 and 8 because
Just 7 and
I
8.
did
Yeah,
7 and 8 too.
my elementary school went up to grade 6. However, there was a school called Pleasant View,
Mhm.
and they were 7, 8, and 9. It was really weird. And then they came over
7,
to
8, 9.
Yeah, and then they came over to our high school in grade 10.
Where was
Okay.
this?
Pleasant View. It's kind of by VP and Finch.
So we're gonna
Oh,
define
okay,
we're gonna
okay, okay.
define this as grades 6, 7, and 8, just for the discussion
Grade 6,
purposes.
7, 8. Okay. cool.
Okay.
6. Okay.
Now that
That's what I went by, so I'm glad that's
Okay,
what we're
good.
the.
We got
I
those-
went 7, 8 to 9.
Okay, fucking redo it. Redo the whole thing.
Can you just get swapped out with somebody?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
I hate you. Okay, let's start with.
That was
We
aggressive.
it's macro.
He's getting aggressive.
Yeah, it's aggressive male posturing. Okay, let's start with Andrew Lanza.
Yeah. So, third choice. Okay. Most of my choices so far have been Super Nintendo. They will continue that trend. This is the outlier. I did not have a Super Nintendo. Sorry, a PlayStation at this time, but I played a lot of it at my friend Rob's house, and we played. I remember being in grade 8 and him telling me that he got a new game for his PlayStation, and you shoot zombies and take weed to heal yourself, and there's puzzles. I'm like, what is this game? I don't believe you. And then I went to his house and he fucking popped in Resident Evil 2, and that opening when you're in the streets of Raccoon City, shit's on fire, zombies are chasing you, you're trying to figure out tank controls, you're like, what is happening? You're pulling out your gun, you're shooting the ground, it's mayhem. That's why, yeah, my third choice for middle school, third favorite game, Resident Evil 2. It's probably not my favorite Resident Evil, but at the time, yeah, it was amazing. I hadn't experienced anything like that until that point. Up until that point, I'd been playing Super Nintendo games and Twisted Metal on the PlayStation. like that's like that was like,
Shadows of Twisted Metal.
yeah, like I was playing
Love that
GoldenEye on the N64 at friends' houses and being like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then all of a sudden there's like zombies eating people's necks and like blood spurting everywhere.
There was like a maturity difference when you switched or when you included like the PlayStation ecosystem
Yeah.
in your
Yeah.
video gaming life. It's like all of a sudden it's like HBO. It's like fucking HBO.
Oh,
I like
I
that
should-
comparison. That's actually pretty accurate. yeah.
100%. It was,
Yeah.
I shouldn't have been playing. Like, I felt like, like my parents can't know about this. I shouldn't be
yeah.
playing this. This is intense. But yeah, and then I remember I got PlayStation later. This is a quick separate story. And then I remember playing Resident Evil 3 at home and like my parents having seen it. And like up until that point, their entire exposure to video games was the Super Nintendo. And then all of a sudden they're seeing me play Resident Evil 3. And they're like, what is this? What is this monstrosity that video games have become?
Yeah. That's actually a good strategy too, because they just thought you were going off brand. But in actuality, you were just like, I'm just going to begin my descent into being a degenerate.
Oh yeah, I was deep into that downward spiral by that point.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I mean, life crests at grade 7, to
Oh,
be
yeah.
honest with you.
Did you guys play Resident Evil 3?
Yeah.
Sorry, Resident Evil 2?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I was
played it.
always tripped out by the healing yourself.
With the herbs and the sprays.
The spray is
Yeah.
my favorite.
Yeah.
But then I'm like watching soccer and I'm like, oh, they're spraying.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
I remember I had that.
I
in, like,
wonder if
soccer.
that's where they got it from.
Yeah, I remember I had like the cooling spray like during soccer.
Yeah, it's just is it isopropyl or whatever?
Fuck.
It's
I
just
don't know.
rubbing alcohol.
I like
But it's made out of herbs or something,
whippets.
right?
Yeah,
It was like
It's
weed
whippets.
spray. It was
we're
weed
we're
rub.
doing whippets
we're
during
doing
soccer.
nothing hurt my
Hey, Andrew,
That's why the Portuguese national team didn't win.
when you played Resident Evil 2,
Dose.
did you get scared at any point? Was
Hell
there any...
Fucking
Tell
yeah, I
tell
did.
me about your
Oh,
first
man.
jump scare or Resident Evil
Jump scare. I can't remember a specific jump scare, but just the fucking absolute like when like the like Mr. X, like the guy that's all in black is like
X gonna give it to
yeah,
you.
he gonna give it to you.
Are we gonna say that this is the first horror game,
We're
like
off the
true
rails.
horror game?
No, man.
No,
Give
definitely
me-
not.
Come on, bro.
Well, Resident Evil 2, like Resident Evil 1 first.
One.
Well, that's what I'm saying. More like the series.
No, there was like point and click games for sure that were
Wow.
like scary.
2 is always like music. You know, with music, it's always like this is the make it or break it for the series,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
the refined version.
Yeah.
Resident Evil
sophomore-
2, they came into their like that was the Resident Evil game
Yeah.
that was like holy
Yeah,
crap.
because they had done the first one, which I mean I like the first one, but the second one, like you see the first one, it's got obviously kinks and things that need to be changed, and then the second one they really
Well, the first
stepped
one,
up for
you're
the second
in
one.
that house.
In the mansion. It
You're
was
just
very- it was very
confined to a
confined to-
big
exactly.
mansion. So it didn't
Exactly.
this is finally it's outside. It's the
That's
pandemic.
what I'm saying. The opening, you're
the-
in the streets
Yeah.
of Raccoon City, and you're like, "What the fuck is happening?" I loved it, but yeah, the second one is definitely.
So what are
much
its
better than the
precursors
first.
then? What are
What was that
About
before?
Resident Evil games, you can go to like we didn't have. So we're talking.
And I'm not
the
talking the
West or
shitty I'm not
Japanese?
talking the shitty attempt. I'm talking like they pull it off. Yeah.
That fear.
Silent Hill was Silent
Fear.
Hill before Resident Evil 2,
I
No,
like
Silent
Silent
Hill was a response to the
Yeah.
Resident Evil series
but
by
was
Konami.
it? Was it
Ah.
before Resident Evil 2? I don't know.
No, it came.
It
First
could
one?
Maybe it came after Resident Evil.
one for sure.
Yeah.
for sure.
But it was a
Absolutely.
response to that series. They're
Yeah.
like, these guys made like scary stuff. Like it's like filmic scary pop scares. The dog, remember in the first one, the dog jumped in through
Or
the glass.
the liquor.
Yeah. So,
So scary.
Konami decided instead of that kind of scare, we'll go into psychological scare.
Yeah.
And
No,
that's
Silent
why
Hill was sick.
Silent Hill
Hill was crazy.
series was a different kind
More
of scare.
psychological. Yeah.
When
Like
did Resident Evil 2? Sorry to cut you. When did Resident Evil 2 come out?
98.
98?
97,
Yeah.
98.
So
Yeah.
Silent Hill came out in 99.
So yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
the
it came
first
after
one.
Resident Evil 2.
So
okay.
it's
Okay.
a response to Resident
Yeah,
Evil 2.
yeah.
So yeah, Capcom had that series going with that shit.
I
And- Yeah.
that just came out is really. Did you play it?
I played a demo of
The
it.
demo, okay.
The demo. I didn't play the full game, but I watched videos of it. With
It looked
like,
really
X
fucking
going to
good.
give it to you. X, he's scary, man.
He's so scary. I remember there was one part in the game. I was going to mention this earlier, and then we got off tangent.
You're right. I
Again.
think that's the first. No, it's one of the first 3D games where there was a dude hunting you down.
That's
there was Super Nintendo had a game where it was a dude with the scissors, and you were this little girl running away from the dude with the scissors.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
What game is
Kind of
that?
morbid.
it might
game
have.
is that?
I don't know if it was. I don't know if it. Look it up. If it came out in the West or it was
I have
only
what am I gonna
Japanese
look
or
up?
whatever.
Japanese scissor game? I have no
Yeah,
idea.
yeah. Is-
For what?
4
so
billion
you had to
hits.
hide.
So I remember the one part in Resident Evil 2 where you go down this path, you go down this like winding kind of like catwalk thing.
Yeah.
And then you go into this room and then you see a camera, and then the camera is like the beginning of the walkway, and you see Mr. X, and you're like, there's no way to go out.
Yeah.
Like, I have to go back the way I came past this fucking guy that's been hunting me. And like literally I was having like a meltdown. And then you just have things where like you get to the save room, and there's that like save room music that's like so soothing and calm. You're like having a panic attack before that. You're
Yeah.
like, thank God I'm in the save room, finding some like ribbons. You're
That's
just like, oh, I'm finding ribbons so you can actually save. The best. So good. Like there's so many good fights. That alligator fight, blowing my mind as a kid.
The alligator fight's particularly awesome.
Yeah. You gotta like throw like the
Okay.
what's it called? The extinguisher.
Sorry to cut you. Just checked. I think it's the game's called Clock Tower.
Clock Tower. Yeah,
Clock
Clock Tower.
Tower.
Yeah.
For
That game was
And you
messed
just
up.
run around cutting people with scissors?
It was a
No,
Super
you're,
Nintendo
you're
game?
a little girl running away from
Avoiding.
this guy trying to chop
Yeah.
you
Is
up
it
with
scary?
scissors.
Is it scary?
Yeah, that was a
I gotta see
like
that.
you're talking about. It's a stressful game.
I'm gonna try. I gotta go check this game.
Resident Evil is definitely one of the most stressful games, I think.
Yeah.
Like, where it's like tension the entire time. Like, obviously, there's parts in stressful games, like, there's parts in games that are stressful in that they are difficult to do, that kind of thing. But, like, Resident Evil, it borrows those horror ideas of, keeping tension, maintaining it, the jump scares, the worry of the jump scares, also, like, the save points and, like, having actually the ability to save being a resource. You know what I mean? A finite resource. Like, I that's one thing I really... Whereas like other games that we're going to get into Final Fantasy VII, like the save points are fixed, so you're going to go to them, and then once you get to the world map, you can save anywhere. But like there is once you're
set camp.
Yeah, exactly.
There was that definitely the up until did they have it in Resident Evil 3? Yeah, they had it in Resident Evil 3 as well.
That
With
was
the
Nemesis, right?
Yeah, Nemesis, which I love Nemesis. But yeah, Resident Evil 2, it had like the fixed camera angles, and then you had like the tank controls. And the tank controls, if you don't know, are where you hold forward to move forward, and you press left and right to rotate left and right. You don't move the way you put your controller; you only move forward. So overcoming that in the game, where it's a constantly like they had these like crazy weird camera angles where you couldn't see ahead of you, but it was done for a reason. Overcoming that kind of hurdle, that barrier, always kind of like once you got your head around the controls and like how you moved in between rooms and camera angles, always kind of felt cool. But it definitely was a learning barrier and definitely took some getting used to.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to Omar.
Hey. I guess for number 3, although I'm not really big into racing games, this game had a big effect on me back in, I think it was like 2002, 2003, around there. Midnight Club 2.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Midnight Club 2. So, like, I at the time, I think I was playing it for the original Xbox. At the time, my cousin rented it, and we went to the store. We went to Blockbuster, the ancient place where we used to rent games. And
Had a specific smell. There's a Blockbuster smell to it for sure.
Oh yeah, for
I read
sure.
about Blockbusters in the People's History of the United States.
I'm telling you, man. And we brought it back, and
Blockbusters.
like I never played. I think the only racing game I played at that time was for 64, the Cruising World and Cruising USA.
Yeah.
So as soon as we popped it in, I just remember driving around through the city, and it was the first time we had like this open city type of feel, and I wasn't really a car. I'm still not really a car guy, but as a kid, I wasn't really into cars. So just seeing that and seeing the fancy cars, and I think that was around the time Fast and the Furious was out and stuff like that. So I just loved the whole fact of being able to super my cars and challenge people at races, and we played it for hours.
This is for
Yeah.
PS1, right? Or PS2?
I played it for Xbox, but
Oh,
it was,
Xbox.
it was
Sorry, you said
originally
that. You said
it
that,
was
yeah.
originally PS2 first, and
Got
then
it,
I
got
got
it.
it on Xbox.
Sorry.
That was the
my bad.
Rockstar, right? Rockstar Midnight
that was
Club.
Rockstar.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Rockstar game.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really good game, man.
Yeah,
It
I
was
don't
a
think
solid
I
game.
ever played them.
They're fun
No way.
games. Street racing games, man.
Sick.
I normally only saw them at like arcades at first, right? And then we finally got it, honestly, it's still my favorite racing game to this day.
Yeah.
Where is this game in terms of its release as opposed to Gran Turismo? Is
I think
three
they're completely
out-
different.
Way before that.
Yeah.
Gran Turismo PS2, the first.
Well, there's
one.
Gran Turismo
PS1.
Oh yeah, PS1
Gran
double
Turismo's
disc.
PS1.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
double disc.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
not,
before that.
to be honest, I didn't really play Gran Turismo. I've
Too
watched
realistic
people.
for me.
I watched people play it, but this one was more. I feel like,
A little more arcadey, no?
yeah, it was more arcade.
Yeah, this one's more akin to like
Yeah.
Project Gotham and stuff like
yeah,
that.
like stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I like the open world feel. I think that's what really caught me as a kid. Just playing that was the whole option that it wasn't just okay. I race.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
like they even had a storyline within. You're escaping cops, going to chop shops,
sick.
doing
That's
stuff
sick.
like that, right? So I think that was my kind of my first dab into I don't want to say open world because obviously I played Final Fantasy and stuff, but for racing, I think that was
Yeah, like the
one of
open
first,
street map that you can just
Yeah,
drive around.
like that. Me and my cousins would sit there for hours and play that, and
Just finding like all the little nooks
Oh,
and
dude.
crannies, driving around. So you guys could race each other, coach co-op.
you can
too, I assume?
race, you can do co-op, you
Sick.
do story mode. It was a well-rounded game, and the soundtrack was phenomenal.
The soundtrack was sick.
Oh,
Was
dude,
it
was phenomenal.
licensed music or?
Yeah, I think the opening soundtrack, like when you're in the menu, was like T.I.'s ASAP. Like that was the first.
Fucking love it.
That was the first track, and I was like, "What the hell? What kind of
Yeah.
game is this?"
See,
And that's what caught me.
See, this is
That's
why I feel like I missed out in playing these kind of things. I missed out playing like the Gran Turismos. Listen, I love Gran Turismo. It'll be in my high school episode.
Yeah.
For sure, in the high school episode for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But like,
Spoilers.
it's way too. Sorry, spoiler alert. Or foreshadowing, whatever. Maybe we'll see.
It's a
Ooh,
teaser.
It's a teaser.
It
Anyways,
could be a misdirection.
I-
Maybe you're lying.
Yeah, this is a red herring. I'm just throwing out red herrings. The problem with those games is they were way too realistic in
Oh,
terms
yeah.
of like what they were trying to do.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
no, we gotta put the
Yeah.
lightning kit on. I have to start with a PT Cruiser.
You have to
and,
hit
like,
your curves
make your
perfectly
way.
every time, like your turns perfectly. There's no damage on the cars.
we
That's
spent a
what
lot
really
of
pissed me
time, and
off.
also you had to do the license tests.
Yeah.
You're
Oh,
like, oh my.
God.
Are you
fucking
serious?
God.
You have to do a license test?
Yeah.
Gran Turismo, you had to do license tests like for
Yeah.
each level. So if you wanted to race like from the first one all the way to like you had to
Yeah.
get your international A like license. It was
Yeah.
annoying as fuck because you
It's-
might be good, but there's like a really hard trial.
Dude, Gran Turismo is like the Dark Souls of racing games.
Yes.
Where you had to
Yes.
show commitment.
Wow.
You're in or
Yes.
out. It's
Yes.
double disc.
Okay, that's an interesting comparison. All right.
It's double disc. Are you
It's double
serious?
disc.
No, you can't be bringing some half-ass shit. You can't be bringing a crappy car when I got like my decked out Supra. You're
How
getting
many
the
discs were
F1
there? How many
getting
discs
the
were there?
F1 cars and stuff. Dose.
You had it, but
Those-
you had to
That's
do
crazy.
your.
But yeah, but like Midnight Club, it was just it was less up its ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
Well,
it-
It was less up its own
Rockstar.
ass.
It was Rockstar.
I know.
and it kind of made fun of
And
the
they're playing
genre in a
fast
bit.
Exactly, yeah.
I liked it to that extent.
I played on PlayStation 2 a similar game called Tokyo Street Racer, and I don't know if it's made by the same or how that
sounds
works.
familiar.
But it was the whole concept of like driving behind a car, being like an asshole, and then you would hit your side bumpers to turn on your flashers to
Yeah.
challenge the dude, or you can flick your high beams on behind the people to challenge
That's
them
cool.
to a street race. So it was more.
Anybody?
It was more
What
like
was what was that for?
no, there was certain colored cars. or
Oh,
whatever.
I think you
Like,
could just
well,
do
they
that
would
to
be-
anybody. That'd be sick. You just go up to like
I
a
think you
like
can.
like
there
a
were still
fucking
pedestrian cars.
Yeah.
You just keep
Keep
be it a
doing it,
troll
yeah.
or whatever like
but
that.
you can't race them. I thought you could just go up to like any like station wagon and just race them if you wanted to. That'd be sick.
I wonder if there was a game like that.
There had to be.
One in the Need for Speed, Hot
Maybe.
Pursuit.
Need for Speed, like Beaver Panel.
The Need for Speeds were my least favorite of those games. Like
Need for
I
Speed,
much
yeah.
preferred Midnight
played it
Club.
for-
I
I
like
played- I played a
Hot
few of those.
Pursuit. I like those
I
where the
played Hot
cops
Pursuit,
were
but-
part of it.
I have one
Yeah.
correction from the
It was
last
weird.
time. We
I
were
liked
talking
it.
about a game about like remember like with the bikes. We kept calling it Road Rage, and it's called Road
Rash.
Yeah,
Road Rash.
Yeah, we're calling it. We're like, oh yeah, Road Rage. Blah blah blah. I love Road Rage.
Yeah,
And then,
it's
yeah.
Road Rash.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then I was listening. I'm like, oh, it's definitely Road Rash.
All that happens.
And, hey, this is live, baby.
Yeah, those Cruising
That's
USA
radio.
and like Cruising World games. I think those were my first taste at the
At
the thing because and you get the steering wheel, you got all that shit.
And
I
when
had
you
the
smash
steering
against the wall,
wheel.
it just like kind of like resets you instantly.
Yeah, you're like
there's very-
smashing
yeah.
in and you're
Yeah.
like doing a flip and then all of a sudden you're like back on the road.
You go off
Yeah.
a ramp and
Yeah.
I think it was like I remember you double tapped and you like do like pop a wheelie to
Yeah.
go over the ramp. and,
Yeah,
like,
you got the NOS. You're just hitting the friggin'.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That was,
You're hitting
yeah.
that. You're blowing.
Polar opposites between like Gran Turismo and Cruising World / USA.
Well, it's simulation and more of like an
Yeah.
arcade. but it wasn't so much arcade.
What? Which one?
Which one? Gran Turismo?
Midnight.
Oh, Midnight Club.
Midnight
yeah,
Club.
yeah. And then that's probably like somewhere. That's like the Spectrum, and then like that falls somewhere probably closer to the arcade side a little bit.
Yeah,
you
no,
know?
for sure.
It was like I think it's a happy medium.
Yeah.
In a way. Because I don't know where Gran Turismo is now. I know it's gotten very popular over the years, especially now.
3
like,
was a big I think the watershed moment where like you just the options you had, and I mean the endurance races, all that stuff, and then Gran Turismo 5 just took it like a whole other.
Did
level.
they take anything away? Do they still have to do? Do you still have to do
You have
testing?
to do license tests. Yeah.
You have to do that.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
I played Gran Turismo 2, I think, for PS1.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I played that one a bunch. That's the only one I played, and I just remember being like, this is not fun. Doing like 30 lap races and shit, and then fucking it up in the last lap, and just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Those ones where you be in like Côte d'Azur,
And you're just like
and
literally
then someone would
perfect.
fuck you in the hairpin at the very end, and you're like, that was 60 laps.
Yeah.
That was 60.
And you
laps.
race the entire race perfectly because you've been doing all these fucking class tests
Yeah.
and shit.
We started
You know how to take every turn perfectly.
with Gran Turismo. We started fucking around with like getting the Escudo Pike Peaks, which was like the fictional like 1700 horsepower car, and then we were like trying to tape down the button on like the because you could just it was just so fast, so you could just grind against the wall and win the whole time in an endurance race. So we like go
You guys
out
are
and
cheesing
smoke weed.
Gran
Anyways,
Turismo?
I'm
You guys are cheesy
love
Gran
it.
Turismo.
buddy. We need in order to get the full shit because you would win these cars.
Yeah.
Like you would win the F1 car. Once you won the F1 car, like unless it was in the over, like okay, so those cars in that game, and I'm gonna stop this really soon because I'm just blowing my entire friggin' high school fucking shit for it. Is that basically what would happen is if you got the F1 car. It was super good in corners, so you would easily beat everyone. But overall speed, the supercars were faster, like the 950 friggin' like Corvette and shit. So
yes.
or like the Pike Peak. So
Andrew's a big car dude.
Yeah.
You can
Oh
tell.
yeah, no,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
this fucking 1500 horsepower. Whew.
no, this is fictional. But this is the thing.
Oh,
These
it's
things
fictional. I know.
Are, these are,
Oh,
no, totally. I got my license.
Yeah.
So like, that's how you see. It broke my fucking train of thought, man.
I didn't
You
do
tape down
nothing.
the button.
We're taping down the button. So like, just because so the overall ones where were just circles, the F1 cars didn't have the fastest overall speed.
Okay.
So we're just like, okay, we want to smoke weed while that happens.
Yeah.
So instead of just waiting, we're trying to tape
I
down buttons
heard-
and shit like that.
I heard in the newest one, because my buddy plays it, there's like an Instagram aspect to like the world. I don't know. And
I don't
you, like,
know shit.
I think that
about
was
You
like
have
a
to,
like-
Forza
I have no
one,
idea.
wasn't that? That was like
I think
Forza?
it was. I think it was Gran Turismo.
where you would
Gran Turismo.
get points from social media.
Yeah, he needed to
Or
like
so
because he
then-
needed to like a certain number of posts per day.
all
like,
of
you, like,
these
flex
are
your car.
examples
No,
of
that's
why
Drive
Midnight
Club.
Club has
Ubisoft.
definite
Yeah.
advantages
Okay, sorry,
over.
I could be wrong. I thought it was Gran Turismo.
All of this
But
has
if it wasn't,
all
it's
of
not
these are
Ubisoft,
reasons why
but
Midnight Club has definite
Drive Club.
advantages over fucking these games.
The
Gran Turismo.
Instagram
And the thing
aspect?
about I think like
Yeah, it's like,
I've
calm
never
down.
played.
Hashtag 1500 horsepower.
Yeah.
Let's see.
The Scudo Pike Peak.
I think Midnight Club 3 came out like years later. I never got a chance to play it, and I thought it was gonna like take over.
Is
but
that the
like
dub
it-
edition?
Yeah, and it never.
Yeah,
Dub
it's good.
edition.
Was it from
Dub-
like
dub
Long Beach or
edition.
some shit?
Number 3 or whatever, but I've never got a chance to play it. 2 was like
Dub
just
edition.
Just
godlike.
has a special place in your heart.
Oh,
I'm
dude.
just gonna be adding dub
2 is,
editions
like,
to
the
everything.
great-
Yeah,
Dub
that's what
edition,
it
just
was
say
back
dub
then.
edition.
That Rockstar captured the moment. It was dub edition.
They just
Dub
completely
edition.
ignored the extreme marketing trends of the time and just went to dub edition.
Yeah,
And that was it.
and it was a parody. It was making fun of like
yeah.
satire. That's what it was.
What about Fast? Okay, how much of Fast and the Furious popularity really fueled into these types of games?
I think, okay, as a kid, I think that was a driving force for us at that age. Was just like you just saw fast cars and explosions, so you're like, all right, cool, I'm gonna go play this game because
Yeah.
it was that and like Burnout. Like we would play that and
Yo,
Burnout, and
Burnout
stuff
was
like that.
dope.
Burnout,
I
right?
love dope.
I never
So,
played
like-
any of these games other than a little bit of Gran Turismo.
Burnout's
Oh
awesome.
no, eh? So like that's what it was. So when I got Midnight Club, I was just like, yeah, this is the game. And then after we rented it, we ended up like I think we kept it for like 2 weeks.
Oh
we,
yeah,
we,
they
we,
racked up.
we were one
So
of
many
those
games
guys.
did that. Yeah.
We were one of those guys. We kept it for like weeks. We're like, we'll pay the $5
Like
fee.
we don't have any copies of the game for you because no one is returning it.
I had to call the people every day. I worked at a video store, so you had to print out a sheet
Oh,
on a
man.
dot matrix printer, put it on a clipboard, and it had everyone's name and number rental. And then when it wasn't busy during the day, you had to call up the number, call up people, tell their shit's late. It wasn't automated or anything like that.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Did anybody give you shit? Do you have any funny stories about that?
I don't. I think one guy I called up and he was like wasted. So he started like, yeah, he's like, what? What the fuck?
If you were my kid, I'd beat you. Just yelling.
Like, whatever, man. I'm like, okay, it's late. Just reminding you. Bye.
Oh man, you're not at that point. It's just like you're not getting it back. Like we're playing.
No,
this thing
no,
for-
I know that there's those types of customers that you
yeah.
get it and you're like, whatever.
You're like,
it's just
sweet
like
game
a
for
reminder.
$6.99. You can just
get a
never go back to
notification.
Blockbuster again.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
And I
To
remember they
ignore.
tried to curb it by saying like you could keep it for 2 nights, and I'm like, bro, you just made everything worse. You should have just let people keep it for the week.
Yeah, 2 nights? What is that?
No,
Those
the 2
came
nights.
later. I think Blockbuster started
Yeah,
having
the
week
2 nights.
rentals.
I remember the
3
weeknight.
nights.
Yeah.
It's like
And it
7
was
day,
always
10.99
new
or
releases,
something.
so you would go in.
Yeah.
And people would hide the friggin' games
Yeah.
behind other games that nobody wanted to rent.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, it was mad. When
It
we were
was fucking
kids, that was like
cutthroat.
you had to go opening day to go rent a brand new game. Man.
I remember going there like Friday night, like kind of late. You're like looking to rent something, and it's just like slim pickings. It's like, oh, I'm
Oh,
renting
yeah.
Lemmings? Ugh.
Because smart people were right after school
Yeah.
or whenever
Yeah.
whatever
straight
class
through,
they
man.
skipped
Not
on
at 8
Friday.
p.m.
4 p.m. was the big time.
Yeah.
You got to go in there.
Yeah,
gotta-
you
gotta
gotta
I
go
had,
in
I had to have the popcorn ready at 4 p.m.
Ooh, wait, you worked at Jumbo Video?
No, I worked
Oh.
at Talkie's Home Video, which was like a
Oh.
privately run.
Oh, and you
video
guys have
store.
popcorn?
You
Yeah, we had
stepping on
popcorn.
You got
Jumbo's
popcorn
brand.
all over the floor.
Yeah,
no?
Jumbo was our competition,
Jumbo.
and then
I remember
Movie
that, yeah.
Gallery came in,
Fuck
started
Movie Gallery.
undercutting everyone.
Fuck 'em.
No.
Blockbuster came in and then matched the undercutting with Movie Gallery.
Ooh.
So it just murdered all the
wow.
video rental stores. It was just done. And then after that, Blockbuster beat out Movie Gallery, and then
How they
they
doing now?
stayed. And then now
How are they doing? I
went
haven't
in- they
followed
went-
up on them.
They're,
They
they're
went
still
away.
in Alaska, going strong.
Yeah, they're doing
Have you guys
real
ever
well.
seen that
I
Twitter?
still gotta
that-
return my Blockbuster video.
Have you guys ever seen the Twitter? The last, I think it's the last Blockbuster.
No.
It's fucking gold. It just tweets. It's like it's tweets from the last. But no, actually no. I think it is actually tweets from the last Blockbuster. I think it's like the official Blockbuster for the actual like the last one. There's like 3 left or something like that.
You know what would be a good video game? Like Resident Evil 2, but you have to return. You're trying to return the Blockbuster video before the world falls apart, before the
Oh, that
plague
would be
spreads.
amazing.
So
Plague is Netflix?
yeah, yeah, exactly. But it's set in that time or whatever of whenever the end of Blockbuster was. What was that? Like 2000?
I have no
no,
idea.
No, way
2008, 2006.
I don't know.
2000 was when
We can literally fact check it
that
right
was
now.
Yeah.
DVDs came into market, and then PlayStation 2 came out 2001, I think.
Yeah.
And everyone got one because why not? It's a
I
DVD.
think
The
player.
first PlayStation?
I think it was probably 2008.
Oh, PS2, yeah,
2010,
2001,
2010.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
2010? Oh.
2010.
2010 was the end of Blockbuster.
That's probably like when they like officially ended. I'm sure they were for all intents and purposes probably a year or 2 before that.
Yeah.
but it says right here September
decline.
23rd. Ceased operations. Yeah. Founded in
wow.
1985. Good year.
So that's like
Good run.
PS3
Good run.
era, PS3, Xbox 360 era is probably the decline of Blockbuster, and everyone went to like GameStop, EB Games, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff,
Yeah.
because they still had like movies too. UMD.
Now they just have pops.
Okay, guys, we got to move on.
Oh yeah,
Cool,
sorry.
cool. Sorry.
No.
Sorry, but
I like
sorry,
it.
tangent.
No, we
I
gotta
love
keep
it.
going, man.
I love it.
Keep
No,
moving.
I love it. This
Oh,
is
it's
what
good.
it's all
Keep
about.
it
Keep moving.
love
Keep
it.
moving so fast.
Sometimes you go on anime
Keeping
side
on,
missions,
keeping-
and it's good.
Oh, you can take off.
Okay, now the incomparable Billy Hoosh.
Wait, am I?
Are we? Yeah, exactly. What I just
Oh, yes,
straight
we
up,
said we were
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
do
yeah,
I
this.
straight up cleared my throat in the
Okay,
microphone.
so hold on a second,
Oh, that's
Billy.
fine.
Billy, for this, I want you to
Sultry.
announce it, and then we'll ask. We'll
Then we do the.
we'll do
fun
the
stuff.
we'll do the thing.
Okay. Okay.
The thing.
Yeah. So
It's not that big.
my third pick. So during this time, what was it? Lance was saying he started it. That was his transition from cartridges to discs. So more data means more complex games, complex stories, textures, all that bullshit. During that time, I was getting my CD stuff from PC. So one big game for me was because I wanted something different from what I played on console. A different experience was on the PC. The first RTS real-time strategy game that I got into was Age of Empires. This game. So the big thing about that was during that time was right first when I got a PC. Anyways, wait.
Okay, hold
I
on.
announced it,
No,
right?
no.
Well,
Okay,
I'm
hold on a
start
second.
Talking
I was
about
just
it.
waiting for you to have a little break there. My apologies. Andrew Lanza, who has exhibited has exhibited large amounts of humility, and just says he doesn't know anything about Age of Empires.
Do not know.
Oh, he
things.
doesn't.
So we're bringing
Yes,
bringing in a pitch hitter for Lanza. We're bringing in the
Switch it out.
incomparable Bojan Technical.
We got to get rid of him. We got to hide
we gotta
Andrew.
pitch
So
hitter.
let's swap
We gotta
that
pitch
out.
hitter.
man.
The
Let's get
men
this
are
changed.
talking now. We got to get rid of you.
Have you guys seen the latest episode of This Is Cosplay? It features Kin Chan, the armorer and run-of-the-mill creative genius from Wampan's Cosplay. Need to see what this guy does to believe it. The series is put together by the Mind Refinery creative team and is a visually engaging look at identity, community, and passion. If you're a fan of cosplaying, gaming, anime, a comic book lover, or like us, general fans of nerddom, this series is for you. And now, back to the show. Get this. Do you need warm-up pitches, Boyan? Do you need like a couple? Okay, good.
Don't drink my drink.
PC, yeah. So Boyan's part of the PC Master Race, so we have to bring him on.
Master Race.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, guys. So let's talk about. Let's continue this discussion about Age of Empires. Welcome, Boyan.
Welcome.
How's it going, man?
So real-time strategy games, like this was did we have a real-time strategy game at that time on a console? I don't think a console was capable of the
No.
complexity of controlling all these different characters.
Like early attempts, but maybe Warcraft or something did that, but it was never successful.
it's
never took off.
Yeah.
It's not really easy to control.
You
that.
It's
can't do
bad
that.
now. It would have been
Yeah.
terrible
Yeah.
then. It's bad now. It would have been
it's still
terrible
bad.
then. Yeah.
Well, what was it? It was Super Nintendo. They had turn-based games, so you had RPGs with like complex stories, and they were turn-based, but you still
Yeah.
had to manage resources and stuff. Now it was moving. It was in real time, and when I was a kid, I would go to like CompuServe, was
Oh,
this
yeah.
weird chain. Yeah, you
Yeah,
had
yeah.
it. And Radio Shacks, they had computers running Warcraft. And I was looking at this game, and I'm like, this is, you can pick in almost like chess. It was like chess, but you had resources to manage from. So if you played Magic, there's like things that you tap mana from.
Know
and
all about
this. Yeah,
Yep.
so the difference for me, there was Command and Conquer. A lot of my friends were into Command and Conquer.
I've played that. That's amazing.
That was a military,
Yep.
but in the future, near future military, bit of an abstraction.
Yep.
For me, I always heard like stories about history and different countries and stuff like that through my parents and my uncle and stuff like that. They were all history nerds or whatever. So then this was the first time it was a game that was about real history and real empires that exist in somewhat, obviously it's a video game, okay?
Yeah, it's limited in what
Yeah.
it can do.
But it had that whole sense of controlling a whole group of people with different realistic types of positions and
Yeah.
jobs and stuff, and watching it grow in the sense of time. You went through ages and different technologies and stuff. Like you could mine knowledge and stuff. Remember, there was like scholars,
Yeah, the
Yeah,
university,
yeah.
the
academics
yeah.
and stuff, so
Academics,
you
yeah.
can
Yeah.
upgrade.
the academies.
But
was
everything,
the
yeah,
unit,
everything was like every building had its own sort of research tree, and then there was
Yeah.
the main one for like getting ages.
Yeah.
To your town center.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the whole thing about the game too was it was bright. It had some like really funky music and
was
stuff
great.
going on, and all the different characters had some sort of like gibberish or language.
Yeah. I mean, and that stuff is to me so iconic that I still use the Age of Empires spawning sound as my text. And I've been using it for over a year, and I have other like notification sounds that are all Age of Empires.
That's
and
awesome.
I've
man.
had it like when somebody hears it like right away. Okay, I know you're an Age of Empires fan because you know exactly. What or everybody knows wo-lolo. Yeah.
But it looked
You hated that
But it
sound
looked
too,
good.
because
Clicking the
anybody
first-
who spammed that, you hated that.
Yeah.
Oh, now I just lost my whole army because some fucking priest came in and converted all
the
of them.
priest was that thing. Okay,
How
ultimately
cool-
that
that's
blew my mind.
that's a unit that never existed in any other game
Yeah.
before or since
Yeah. So there was a priest unit
that could heal. Right?
that could heal, and he could convert other soldiers onto your side.
And
It's
on-
suddenly
if
they're
you-
your enemy.
What? And if you're playing, and if you're playing PC, if you're playing like the computer, like a random, you'd be paying attention to your campaigns elsewhere, and then one of them, he just one by himself would like go into your, and just start. You'd be like, why is there randomly 4 guys who are not on my squad?
I mean, they were useless otherwise. Like they were slow, they were easy to kill.
Super slow.
But if you
slow.
were sneaky about it, you could be real evil.
That
with
was like a Zerg rush before that stuff. That was the
Zerg rush.
wo-lolo. So Age of Empires, the music was crazy. It had really good, relaxing music and like all these like drum sounds and stuff. When you clicked everything, the UI all had really fancy sounds. It was a polished
battle horn?
RTS.
Oh yeah,
Battle
and
horn.
apparently it took a while to develop too. It was the inspiration, I think, and this is where like. So Warcraft, it was sci-fi and fantasy was what dominated RTS before Age of Empires.
Yes.
And then Civilization was a great hit, but it was a turn-based RPG. RTS.
It was difficult for.
And they just got that inspiration from Civilization. Oh, look, we can do a history setting, and it became. That's when it went from like if we are levels of nerdy.
Yeah,
it went from like. Fantasy and art and sci-fi into
like actual
historic
history.
nerddom, so it's like slightly more accessible to general people. And for me, like was like I grew up watching Swords and Sandals movies. Like I loved huge battle scenes. Your Bravehearts and all that other stuff. And then this game was just like a natural, and it also just like. I became a massive history, especially medieval for Age of Empires 2, but also like ancient Greek and Roman history. I mean, huge nerd because of these games.
Yeah, exactly.
I learned more, and I don't know. Remind me. Did Age of Empires 1 have like the glossary or whatever?
You could go through and look and read the history of all the guys. I used to do that.
All education games were pretty much shit.
Yeah.
When we were growing up. And suddenly here comes this game that is not an education game, but it has. So not only are you following like a historical campaign, obviously like what you're doing is not what happened, but there's battles and names of people and descriptions of things that are based on real historic things. And then if you're really curious, hey, here's a handy glossary where you can read about all these stories as if you're reading a textbook. And I think that game made so many people so much more interested in history by just being a fun game that like gave you access right away. This is before Wikipedia, before Google. You know, Ask Jeeves didn't help.
Well, it was like it felt like it was Microsoft Incarnia of RTSs. Yeah, because it gave you something, and even the first game, the box. Came with a book with like 2 pages on
Oh,
each.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No,
on each. Yeah.
Remember that.
Yeah. But on Age of Empires 2, which by far that's like
I
would say that's the pinnacle of that
It
series.
goes down to the unit in terms of like explanations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Also, is this in terms of the release of games like Civilization and stuff?
It came after Civ. It was actually made by the same one
people.
of the two
Bruce Shelley, I want to say his name is. But yeah, no, it was a guy who worked on Civilization at Ensemble Studios and created Age of Empires.
Dude, is it the same publisher now?
It's Microsoft.
It's Microsoft. Microsoft was behind Civilization. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. That's Sid Meier. And I forget who distributes that Sid Meier game. But that's why this guy Ensemble was a split, and the guy went and made Age of Empires for Microsoft.
Right.
Oh, okay. So that's
but Civ was that game was hard, man. Civ is the Gran Turismo, and Age of Empires is like that's the Midnight Club.
I like Age of Empires. I like Age of Empires.
They're two different genres.
But I
one is like
100%.
a battle simulation.
Yeah.
And war.
Now it's Total Rome
that's
is
more
the
like
big one.
war.
By the way,
Rome
while Age of Empires was very successful for its time, like worldwide success, and got fairly good reviews, one of the bigger like things that it got criticized on is that it kind of promised this, because there was a lot of talk about its inspiration from Civilization, blah blah blah. It kind of promised like you would have this big empire control sort of deal.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be more of a battle more of a battle arena
It's
type.
super. It
smaller
feels
map.
super localized.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
well, it was. Remember, you were talking about multiplayer. It was it had death matches.
Death matches
They were-
was really what I
Yeah.
played in it though.
Yeah,
Like I did the campaigns, but
I don't know how many
Yeah.
games. I think it might. My research could be bad, but it could be the first RTS to have fully like randomized maps, and that's one of the things that could give it life way long. That and when people adding a scenario builder, the exact same scenario builder
Yeah.
that the developers used to make the maps.
yeah.
You could make custom maps, and people made custom map modes. And
Oh,
and
nice.
That was
Yeah,
a
yeah.
big deal. It came with a whole map and mission editor
Yeah.
in it. That
Yeah.
that was huge.
Do you? This is again my memory with Age of Empires 2 is better than
Yes.
1.
No. Yeah, for sure.
But do you remember in 2 they had like that scenario building stuff got a lot bigger, and there was a castle mode where they
Oh,
just had a
yeah.
castle that kept spawning units, more and more units, and
Yeah.
it was
It was
just
like
it
a
was just
horde
you
mode.
just the
It
one
was like, it was
yeah.
like a horde mode.
There's
for-
horde modes. There was
Yeah.
tower defense modes. There was it's like
You're
stuff like
right.
before
Yeah.
Warcraft 3 came around, and you had Dota, like original Dota and that sort of stuff. Like that's where that stuff was born as an idea beforehand. It was great.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, Age of Empires. I would buy
Fucking
again.
Loved it. Yeah.
okay,
Sweet.
guys. We need to move on. Bojan Technical, thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And not subjecting us to Andrew Lance having to explain anything about the game.
Or him. Yeah.
Andrew Lance, you're coming.
Alright,
Andrew
you
Lance, come back in.
Andrew pretended to care.
Bojan Technical, everybody.
Thank you, Boyan.
Thank you, Boyan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Boyan.
PC.
I had a little nap. No, I didn't.
Okay,
you did.
fantastic.
Well, welcome back.
Okay, guys. So
Wow, Boyan's got a big head.
he does lots of Age of Empires related knowledge.
Yeah.
No, it was
He's
good talk. It
He
was a
has
good
to
talk. I
run
listened to it all.
RTS. He's not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
He's not Super
you got
Mario, bro.
there's some laughs, some goofs, some gaffs. I liked it.
it's good. Boyan, bring in the flavor.
Yeah.
So mine game taught me. It was really the first thing that taught me humility. Because in fighting games, up until that point, I really hadn't had any humility because I had been able to lay waste to any challenge that really had stood before me. And realistically, I had come to a point where I'd been educated by very talented people, and I had gotten good. And Hitoshi, genius behind the controller. But I didn't know humility, and I had to learn. And Killer Instinct dropped.
Oh,
Different
man.
battle system, really kind of a different battle system based on combos, which now for me seems so friggin' gimmicky. It's ridiculous, especially when everyone started going. I think the thing is when everyone started adding the combos to their games. I didn't like pre-existing games like Mortal Kombat and like Street Fighter. They were adding combos, even though combos really exist in Street Fighter, but it's more from like a martial arts perspective, where you know what I mean, where it's part of the nature of fighting rather than friggin' digital fighting, rather than
Were combos kind of like a glitch almost? They started as a glitch?
Not a glitch. Like you could do the combos in that, like the removes, like if you're doing a jump kick, you quickly go into a foot sweep and stuff like that, where like they made sense. And Mortal Kombat, same idea. Less so Mortal Kombat because the moves were like less connective.
Yeah, it's
I
kind of
feel.
like abusing
Yeah.
frames and shit. In, like,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
original,
exactly.
Yeah.
Street
So
Fighter.
Killer Instinct came out, and I just I'd used to being at least tied or co-best in my friend group, and in this game I was only second, and it was really upsetting. And my friend Justin, growing up, was one of if not the best
Shout outs
Killer
Justin.
Instinct players. Shouts to Justin. One of the best Killer Instinct players I'd ever seen. He fought much like I do in Street Fighter, in that it's a grinding.
Yeah.
Like slow game where like if you try to use epic amounts of speed, and in Killer Instinct, like just with the combo system, you can be exhibiting large. You can be really quick in that game.
Yeah.
If you can move quickly, and if the person who you're fighting's defense, isn't really up to speed. Anyways, Justin was one of the best players I've ever seen. I never got better than him. It's something that upsets me to this day. There's nothing I can do about it. But I had played this game so much. We used to be going down to the local Video 99 in Bradford,
Oh,
Ontario,
man.
Hell yeah.
and we'd go after school. We wouldn't spend our lunch money on food. We would spend it on going there, and like up and like at the beginning, like there you could you could like play a game there and hang out and play the game there. You didn't have to bring it home. And
What was it on? Like a system?
it was on Super NES, but none of us had. It wasn't.
Oh.
The original. It was obviously an arcade release. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
'94, the arcade dropped. The arcade cabinet dropped, but then I think it was like halfway through '95, '96 it came out. So I started playing in like grade 6 and 7, and yeah, it just we'd go there and we'd play and we'd play and we'd play. Then finally Christmas rolled around.
They were
He
just
got
cool
it.
with you guys.
Well, you paid.
Yeah.
Oh, you paid. That's the kid. You paid.
I thought you
It's
guys
like an
were like.
arcade.
I think I was just showing up at lunch and just fucking bullying the Super Nintendo. That's I'm just like
just taking it over.
No, we bullied arcades. Like that's where the bullying took place. Like that was the. I mean, you know, as you said, you know, the dude's Grady's farting on you in the previous one.
Dude.
Like the only natural way to get rid of them is to beat them at these games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the only social currency you
Yeah.
can exhibit over them because their social currency of whipping your ass was much higher at that point. But I digress. So you know, Killer Instinct was fantastic. I was a combo user. I liked combo.
A combo user.
Yeah, I was TJ combo user. I liked his speed. I liked his brawn. He had the proper counter moves as well. There's certain things I'm looking for in video game characters. The ability to get someone away from you and put them in the air is a big one because sometimes you're just taking too many hits. You need to back them off. I typically play in video games a counter-attacking game.
Okay.
So, except in Mortal Kombat 2, I'm particularly aggressive. Counter-attacking game. If you're good at Killer Instinct, you can eat people alive like me, as my friend Justin did. And yeah, you know.
Didn't they have funny, like each combo had a special name?
Yeah, we had triple combo.
Yeah.
We had super combo. Then anything over.
And they
at
would announce it too. That's
yeah,
just
and
funny.
then 11 hits was like king combo.
Yeah.
And I used to like, you know, I knew the combos.
Yeah.
I was doing the 40 hit ultras and all this kind of stuff, the 20 hit killers, all this kind of shit. But they have the names and it was intense. But like the more I play it, looking back, it doesn't hold up like the other ones did. But to overlook it on this list, given the sheer amount of time played and overall enjoyment, but it was broken too. Like there was characters like Jago who were OP, and you know, and the idea was making, you know, when they did the Killer Instinct follow-up for 64 was to even out the battle system or make everybody, you know, make not characters so, you know,
they balanced it.
Yeah.
They
The
balanced
characters had
more
weaknesses.
samey. Are they more samey in the second one?
Yeah, it's more evened out. Like characters have their benefits and they have their, you know, weaknesses, their strengths, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Did anybody enjoy this game?
I
Yeah,
played the game for Super Nintendo. I enjoyed it.
Were you a Cinder user?
I never really like.
You just come across as one.
I probably use Cinder the most.
Cinder's the skeleton, right?
No,
He's
it's
a fire
Spinal.
dude. Yeah.
Spinal's the
I was
skeleton.
that guy.
High level
I played the skeleton guy.
High level users, if you were good at, if you were good with Spinal, you could definitely.
I
He
Because
had
it
like
was
a
like the
sword,
Shang-
right? He had like a little
He had the
sword.
sword, and it was like he was like
He's
kind
like
of
a
the Shang
pirate
Tsung
kinda.
where you could turn into
Yeah.
yes, like a pirate. So like you could fit like some of his combo finishers, he would turn into other people.
Yeah, I remember.
He had
And, like,
like those
finish
big
it.
swords.
He was fucking sick.
Have you played like the newer version? Because I know it came back on Xbox.
I
a
have
few
not
years
played
ago.
the newer version. Killer Instinct Gold, I think, was the last one I played.
Oh, okay, cool.
I didn't like the subsequent ones. You know what I mean? Like that much.
Yeah.
Have you played the?
I dabbled in it because I was younger at that time. But when it came out, I just like I had a lot of older cousins, so that's how I got my video game experiences. I played it, but I wasn't like in it like that. I just watched people play it, and then I noticed it kind of disappeared for a while, and then like a couple years ago, it came back on Xbox for free play. But then you had to like buy the characters in order to like. So
Yeah.
I dabbled
Free
in it
play.
again, but then I was just like, oh well, if you have to pay for each character, then I'm not gonna play this game. I didn't put any time into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when it came out too. It was up until that point, I think I really only played Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, and then that game came out, and it's kind of that rare style like the Donkey Kong where they're like cheesing kind of like 3D renders, but like it's like 3D models, but like 2D renders of 3D models almost.
Yeah.
And it was super fast. There's all these combos, and I hadn't experienced anything like that up until that point. I'm not saying that's the first one. I'm saying that's the first one that I experienced, and it blew my mind at the time. Like I didn't play it a lot. I played it at a couple friends' houses. I think like my brother and I rented it a couple times, but I just remember at the time being like, holy shit, like this is fucking fast. This is crazy. This is a lot of fun. But yeah, it definitely kind of.
You can very casually get your entire first bar taken.
Easily.
The game moves that fucking quickly.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it's
You
a
get two
fast
really
game.
big combos on you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why, you know, as a
I think around that time too, when I remember correctly, being a kid, there was that other game along with that Bloody Roar.
Oh yeah.
I think it was that
Yeah, I
game. So
played that game.
it was those two
remember it.
that like I remember a lot of people like that were older than me were playing, but I just kind of stuck to like the Street Fighters and whatnot, because that's what I knew. I
Yeah.
couldn't do combos for the life of me, so I'm like, I'm gonna get destroyed playing this game.
I mean, and you have this game trying to be the anti-Street Fighter.
Yeah.
And even though there is some things akin to Street Fighter in terms of like movesets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it tried to be the anti of those, and it was getting to comes into a crowded market too.
Wasn't that a rare game too?
It was a rare
Yeah,
game.
yeah, it was
They had a
rare.
good.
Oh, rare,
They went on a good run because you had like Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
You had this game, then you have like GoldenEye coming out, and it's
The
like
free-to-play one wasn't made by Rare. I think it was made by Iron
No,
Galaxy.
Rare's been done for a
I don't think it
while.
was. I don't think it was
done
made
with
by
that.
Rare.
So that was when it was still Rare.
Yeah.
So that's a dope game, and it had kind of like Donkey Kong, that the sprite 3D graphics.
Yeah,
combo.
yeah.
So it was cool.
Yeah.
I believe it or not, the version of Killer Instinct that I played the most of was the Game Boy version.
the Game Boy version was
Oh.
okay. Like it was
Yeah.
okay. It, like obviously the graphics are the graphics.
And it's 2-button, right? It's 2-button, but you still had to know, like, you have to do these wacky
Yeah.
moves and stuff like that. Because it's 2 buttons and then the D-pad. So I still have it.
Yeah,
Really?
like learning how to
That's
do
the most
ultra combos
Because
on
there
the
was a little
thing.
book that you would open up, and it had some of the combos to it,
Yeah.
and you had to like look at it and play on the Game Boy, get all these stupid. It
Yeah.
was a challenge, but it was actually fun. I wonder who worked on that.
Of the fighting games that came out for Game Boy, I
Mm-hmm.
liked that one the most because like I didn't think that Mortal Kombat
No.
translated well,
No, I didn't.
right? Whereas I felt it translated well for Game Gear, but Killer Instinct was fantastic. You know,
Yeah.
Game Boy. I mean, like obviously relative to again the graphics. Well, I will say this: this is one of the games where the difference between the arcade version and the console version is, in terms of fighting games, is one of the biggest.
Oh, really?
Yes, and then I also felt the same way when like Tekken came, when Tekken started to become
Yeah.
popular. The Tekken arcades were way better than the actual
Console.
Like playing probably until Tekken 3 came out,
Oh,
when that was
for
like
sure,
a
for
certified
sure. Oh, yeah.
classic, right? The arcade experience on it was way better.
beyond it. Yeah.
Yeah, and once you got the key is though like
Well,
when
what
you
made
go-
it better? Just like the graphics, like the sticks.
The graphics are a lot. The
Feel,
graphics are a
I
lot
guess,
better. I find that the controlling for just given the combo nature and like the more of the sliding
like more
moves,
precise for sure.
yeah, I definitely would prefer. I definitely prefer the movements of that game onto it. Whereas like Street Fighter, I like obviously love the arcade machines,
Yeah.
but I would still rather play on a console.
Did
for
you
that-
guys
from a
fuck
playing
with?
version.
Did you guys fuck with a little the joystick joypad for the Super Nintendo? Or like I'm sure they had one for Sega too.
No,
They
I,
did.
I,
They
I
had
never
this
never
big-
fucked with it.
Yeah, they had a
Yeah.
pretty sweet one for the Sega.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
they had a
I've
good
never
one
seen
for
the one for
they had a
Sega.
good one for Super Nintendo. I remember I had a couple of buddies had that. I remember.
I'm trying to remember what that one looked like.
It was just like a big, like
And it
Super
had, like,
Nintendo
was it
style. It's
still
just,
the
like, big
gray-
square? Yeah,
yeah,
it was a
square.
big gray
Yeah.
square with the joystick and the buttons laid out.
Yeah, I think I vaguely.
It's exactly how
like
you
the
would picture it.
during the Super Scope. Remember the Super
Yeah,
Scope?
fuck
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I'm sure there was purple on it. 100% there was purple. But it looked good. It worked well. But you never fuck with that.
No, I never fucked with it. You know what? In hindsight, extreme hindsight, I was like, why didn't I do that? I did like the arcade stuff on some of that.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a whole different thing of mastering it with the.
But then you start getting people who are like, "Oh, you got your fucking this," and no, I kind of
Then you start fighting over it, and you're like, "Oh, I only lost because you only have one."
because your
that was probably like
competitor,
80 bucks.
exactly.
It's like,
your
"Oh, I only
intensity
lost because
level.
you're using the thing."
This
Yeah.
is exactly why in like GoldenEye, I'm always like, "Give me the powder fucking joystick. I don't
Yeah.
want to hear any. I don't want any bitching."
That's what
about
Bernie
this."
Sanders would do.
Yeah,
100%.
fucking absolutely.
He
Of
wants a
course.
level
Let me
playing
tell you
field.
something. The powdery joystick is the only way of true equitability in these games.
It's true though.
It is
That's
true.
amazing.
Bernie,
He's ever-
feel the burn on that one.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders is a gamer. 100%.
For
He
sure.
must be.
Yeah.
This guy's rocking
He must be.
ColecoVision stuff back in the day, for sure. Like George Lagos Technical over here.
Thumbs up. You got a
and-
big thumbs up. That's the first one I've seen this whole entire day.
He's never happy about anything.
No.
Okay, guys, we got to move on. Andrew Lanza.
All right. Yeah, so this next game is actually pretty important because this is really one of the first games that kind of came. I was playing it at the same time as the internet was really gaining popularity. So these kind of go almost hand in hand. For the audio listeners, I'm doing like a crisscrossing finger motion. They go hand in hand.
And version of a Venn diagram.
So this game came out near the end of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Again, running theme. And it is Super Mario RPG. Now,
It's a good one.
yeah, this game is an absolute masterpiece. There is not one thing bad about it. As I said, this came through my life with the rise of the internet. So it was really one of the first games where like I needed to know everything. There were so many secrets. I wanted to learn everything, and that's where the internet came in. And I remember going to my friend's house and just like sitting on his internet and like going through game facts, going through like just random like fucking message boards. I couldn't even tell you what they are now. Just finding all these secrets. And what was really cool about this game is that it was by these two companies together. Like it's never happened since. You have Square, who's now Square Enix, and you have Nintendo, and they fucking came together, and again, hand motions.
Would you call it the Final Fantasy of Nintendo games?
100%. That's exactly what it is. It is
Final
the
Fantasy of Mario
it's
Bros.
Exactly.
It's
It's
the
the
Final
Final
Fantasy,
Fantasy.
the Final Fantasy of Nintendo game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's essentially Final Fantasy starring Mario.
It's me, Mario.
Mario.
Mamma mia.
But it was just so much fun. And it had like every so often it had these mini games, and it had this system where everything was timed. So it was a turn-based RPG, like a classic turn-based RPG, but it also had this action aspect where you had to kind of time everything, and it also kind of went to the music, and then you did these double hits that were timed to the music. So it wasn't just a passive experience. It was also you actually had to participate in the battles, and still, if you wanted to get those items back, if you wanted to do a double jump, if you wanted to hit your hammer twice, whatever, you had to keep you had to stay active, and you had to like time your hits. And I just loved it. I remember playing hours and hours and beating it over and over and over again and just finding every secret. I just loved it. And also introduced one of my favorite characters that was pretty much only in that game. I think he was in some other like puzzle game for like a bit, but his character named Gino. He's only in that game. He's just like this little like wooden boy.
He's from Woodbridge.
Gino's Pizza.
Gino's for sure. Gino for sure drives a Golf.
Oh man.
Yeah, you can find him outside Tim Hortons. Yeah, he's just this like little wooden wizard guy, and he's super super chill, and he's one of the best characters of the game. But yeah, I loved it. Funny, beautiful, great art.
Would you say he's the precursor to Tingle?
Huh. I'd say maybe, yeah.
That's an interesting question.
A little bit. That is
an interesting question.
There's a parallel there, right? You're from
honestly, I feel like they were like,
he's the proto Tingle.
Yeah. You're blowing my mind.
Mind blown.
Yeah, no. It was essentially like, guys, we need to come up with a guy who's different enough that we don't get sued. Because I think that's why, and like that's why there has never been a true sequel to that game. Oh yeah, this is another thing I wanted to touch on so there's never been a true sequel to that game because both parties own like half the game. Like half of it's owned by like Square Enix and like half of it's owned by Nintendo.
But there were other ones made like
that's what I was going to say. So there was
kinda.
there was Super Mario RPG was made Paper Mario was made for the Nintendo 64. Then there was GameCube. GameCube was Thousand Year Door.
No, wasn't there a Game Boy Advance one or a Game Boy?
There was. That was another series. They're both essentially spiritual successors to Mario RPG. Then there's like, as you said, there's the Game Boy Advance. Those are Mario and Luigi.
Yeah.
I've only played one of them for the 3DS. I can't remember what the one was called for the 3DS. And it's like...
the Advance, I played that one.
Yeah, I don't know how the Advance one was, but the 3DS one was like... It had very funny humor, but it was so hand-holdy. So it just held your hand through every little thing over
tutorial.
And over.
That was like Skyward Sword tutorial time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like, I just want to play the game.
Dude, and it would just be like over. It's like, I've done this literally 17 times so far. Let me just like hit A and be like, I got it. Or like B and just be like, I got it.
You had an interesting point about the writing. The writing was unique in those games. It was
very
funny.
unique,
It was funny. And like,
that's how it was with Mario RPG as well.
Yeah.
It was like very funny. It was very silly, very
whimsical.
irreverent. Yeah. It was very strange and just weird writing. And like you would have like little cameos too. Like I remember like Link was like, you can find like Link napping in a bed in like one part. And did you guys ever play this game? I'm just rambling about it.
I really think that it's probably, if you were to look at most influential games all time, it's way up there. It's really good.
Yeah, it's a really cool game.
Yeah, you know what? It's super good, super entertaining. You can play it with a bunch of people too. Switch off.
Well, yeah.
No, I think it's, you know what? Like, I would never do that with which we're going to talk about later, Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
I would do it with Mario RPG.
I guess.
There's something that's a little bit more shareable about anything Mario.
Yeah, it's more Mario always brings people together. It just has that kind of community where everybody just can join in, even if it's a one-player game. You're used to, just from the history of it, passing the sticks around and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So-
Luigi, man. You die and then
You
fucking
hand it over.
Luigi with
I don't
the
think Luigi
rapid-fire
wasn't
control.
in the game at all. I think he had like one little mention. And that was
Well,
it.
I guess I played Mario and
Yeah.
Luigi.
No, I'm just saying.
But
as
we're
an
talking about
aside.
Mario
Yeah,
games
yeah,
had
Yeah.
that,
Yeah,
that
for sure, for sure.
multiplayer.
Multiplayer, and everybody's just used to like at least 2 to 3 people sitting around that console and playing.
Yeah.
So I think it always gives off that vibe as opposed to like something like Final Fantasy VII, where it's kind of like you're creating the story for yourself when you're playing.
Well, the Mario RPG had a really great story. Like,
Yeah.
for instance, what I really thought
That was the
so-
best. I thought that was the greatest, like,
yeah,
the best part of it.
The beginning of the game starts off, and it was like this almost like meta take on the Mario story. And this was
Mhm.
like 98, I think. As I said, this was the end of the Super Nintendo, and it was this meta
Yeah.
take where like it starts off and like Bowser steals Princess, and he like everybody's almost annoyed by it. They're like, ugh, this guy again. They're like, this guy, like it's getting tired. You know what I mean? They're almost like chirping Bowser, and then the game starts off where you save Princess right at the beginning of the game, and you just waltz through the first level, trounce everybody because you're Super Mario, and then you beat Bowser, and then Bowser's like, oh, and then you lose Princess, and then like this sword crashes down, and then Princess gets strewn to the ashes. And then you find Bowser later in the game, and he's like a shell of who he once was. He's like commanding like 6 troops, and then you're like, hey, do you want to join my team? He's like, no, I don't need to join your team. He's like, I'll let you guys join my team. And then you're like, all right. And then Bowser's on your fucking team. And then Bowser is a playable character.
This
And
is
it's
like when Spider-Man teamed up with Venom to kill Carnage.
yeah, it's like my
Pretty
next.
much.
It's like,
I'm
oh, I
just
almost
saying.
spoiled something for my next game. I won't say that.
Oh, man.
Tell me what.
Oh.
Remember, I never played this game.
Yeah.
I looked at it in a magazine, so I saw the graphic style was completely different.
Yeah,
and it had this. What was it like? It was like
it was
that,
like isometric 2.5D.
but also the way like characters were. It was almost like claymation or something.
Yeah, it was almost like it was again that kind of like cheesy like the Killer Instinct or like Donkey
That
Kong.
fake 3D kind.
Yeah,
of
it was like
sprite
3D, but like
3D.
it was like rendered as 2D, but it was like a 3D sprite rendered as 2D, and like you could see it because like every time you would run around in a 3D environment, and then when you touch an enemy, it would become a battle, and then it would become turn based, but there would still be platforming, and it would be like this kind of like 2.5D kind of thing. I think I said 1.5 earlier, but I meant 2.5, where it was like kind of like this diagonal angle, and there was still platforming. Yeah, and it just looked great. It was like a ton of bright colors and whatever.
That was like the styled design,
Yeah.
being able to get around like the graphical power
Yeah.
limitation. So like that was really cool.
I could be wrong, but I think there was a new chip put into that cartridge.
Was it the Super FX chip?
No, that was before. That was like Star Fox or like
Yeah.
Super FX, which almost made my list. I love the original
What
Star
was
Fox.
it? How was the leveling system in that for the characters?
It was fully like number levels. It was an RPG. It was Super Mario RPG.
Oh, wow.
It
So
was
like,
it was a legitimate.
yeah.
like,
I mean, it was
full-on-
like an
Okay.
RPG light. Like it was for kids, but it was like essentially like a Pokemon level RPG.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So it was like
It's
fully,
like your RPG gateway drug for sure.
That's
what those
100%.
games
Oh,
are.
I was gonna mention that as well. This was my entry into before this. I'm like, I don't want to play RPGs. I don't want to play a game where I read.
Come
Like,
on, man.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to read. And like all of a sudden, I'm playing this game.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh,
that's
this game is
Andrew.
one of those games that you read, but it's kind of fun.
Kinda cool.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. I kind of like this game. And then ever since then, and that'll lead into my next game. But ever since then, I've been a big fan of the turn-based RPGs.
Do you think that, and hear me out on this, do you think that Square Enix and Nintendo can be brought together to do this again? If I feel
No.
like, no,
No.
listen,
What
I
was
feel like,
Kingdom Heart? They're now Kingdom Heart. No, what?
No, that's
Disney and
That's
who?
Disney and Squeenix.
Squeenix. Yeah.
tough guys, but like, if we can bring Lennon and McCartney together to do Let It Be under those circumstances,
How'd that work out?
they made a great album, and then they broke
Where's
up.
Lennon now?
Oh, if they hadn't have made Let It Be, he'd be with us today. Mark David Chapman only shot him because he didn't like friggin' Let It Be.
Yo,
I got one.
Fuck yeah.
what was the last Square game for Nintendo? Did something happen between them?
Yeah, they went to PlayStation for Final
For-
Fantasy VII because
so
they
they
had
signed
because for
exclusively to
Yeah.
play. Still?
well, I don't know about still, but now there's bad blood. But because for two big reasons, actually one, it's CDs. they didn't want to pay. You have to pay Nintendo a licensing fee for the cartridge, and they're like, "Fuck that!" So they could essentially go to PlayStation and put. How big was Final Fantasy VII? It's going to lead into something.
3 discs.
Yeah, it was 3 discs.
And for them to go 3D, remember for a moment?
Yeah.
I remember reading a magazine there was going to be a Final Fantasy 3D for Nintendo for the Ultra 64.
Wow.
And there's screenshots of it.
What is the memory difference between discs and cartridges? Like, for example, if you
Huge.
like,
Huge.
It costs money because it's
Okay.
physical media.
like, hold on a second. So, like, for example, if
But now
I
it's gone
wanted,
the other way. Now,
if I
like,
wanted to
Nintendo Switch
do-
games are
yeah,
on
the
little.
little SD
so if I
cards.
wanted to do like Final Fantasy 7
Yeah.
for a cartridge, like, how would that go?
First of all,
Jeez.
the music would be
Terrible.
gone. The
Yep.
music would be like low res MIDI.
Yep.
First of all, because like music takes up a huge amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the music is gone right away. You couldn't do it.
It
You
would-
couldn't do that game on cartridge.
Today, cartridge with today's standards.
Well,
the
yeah, but
Switch
that's like
would
a-
be SD cards.
Yeah.
but like multiple SD cards, like 2 SD cards.
Yeah.
Of like the
Oh,
biggest
okay.
size ever. Because what's a Blu-ray? A 40 gig or 60
I don't
gig,
know.
something like that.
There's like dual layer and shit.
so it would be
Yeah.
like a
don't
couple
know.
of double SD card, mini cartridge would be a selling point.
So now when you lose the
no,
cartridge,
I
just
feel like there's
lose-
no way
it
a
would
game
still have
would.
degradation in like graphics if it was on like a Switch or something like that.
What do you mean?
He's talking about a Final Fantasy on cartridges.
No, how many
At that
cartridges would it
time,
be at that time? You
it's
just couldn't do it.
impossible.
It's,
No,
you
no,
just
yeah.
couldn't do it.
No, because you know what, the music makes complete sense. That's
It's
especially
back in the day. It was the music that
It-
would be the most. You could have that game if you and like the cutscenes too. I'm sure that game was like all cutscenes and all music.
Oh
was,
yeah,
like,
well
what
even
took
then
up-
your PlayStation's dying
yeah.
processing
It's
like
loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you just couldn't fit that game on cartridge, and if you did, you'd have to make severe.
It would cost like $6,000 90s money. It would be ridiculous to buy that because
$8.5 million.
it was
now?
like RAM. It's
Yeah.
RAM. A cartridge is
Yeah,
like
yeah,
RAM. So it back then in the 1996, it'd be so expensive
yeah.
to
Wow.
buy like
Well, also, again, don't forget, too, half of
680 gigs, 640 megabytes.
Yeah, but back in the time as well, don't forget that it also was ridiculously expensive because all cartridges are licensed by Nintendo. Before you just print CDs like that's why they're like for the PlayStation you just print
You
CDs
still
like whatever.
paid-
Like,
Oh, yeah.
You still paid a royalty to be on that platform. You pay platform
Yeah,
fees,
but you don't have to
there
pay
wasn't
also,
media
I believe
yeah, you don't
Sony
have to
also. I
pay
think Sony
a
owns the
cartridge.
royalty
Yeah.
for the compact disc too.
do
Oh,
they? I thought
really?
it was
Or who?
Philips. I thought it was.
Oh, it could be
Philips.
Philips. Good call.
I
I'm
could
trying
be
to
wrong.
remember. We
I
gotta
could be
look up
wrong.
who
I could be
is-
wrong. It totally. Huh?
Philips.
It's Philips.
Okay.
Yeah. George L.
George Technical. Philips.
Anyway, I feel like we've talked about.
Yeah,
Mario RPG.
said, yeah, we
Anyway,
went
if you
way
guys
up.
haven't played it, find a legal copy. I'm not winking. And
Well,
play that shit.
Is
I won't
is
emulate
on-
it at all.
Is it on the Wii store or Switch
Yes.
store or whatever?
It is
being-
on the Super Nintendo Mini. I have not touched it again.
Okay, I have one. I have one of those.
Do you have the Super Nintendo Mini?
Yeah.
It's on there 100%.
Okay.
Dude, it's fucking
really?
great.
Yeah.
It's great. It's a long game though. It's like a solid. It's 30
Has it aged well?
beautifully. I've played it not super recently, but I played it in the last like 5 years, and it's beautiful. I played it
Yeah.
on.
I would want to
Not
play that
my-
on a portable if it was that much of a time commitment and not necessarily
Yeah.
need that sort of like.
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
We got to move on. We got to move on.
Cool.
Just heads up. RPGs on portable work
Yeah.
because
They
it
do.
just because we
RPGs
need
on-
to
on
prefer.
portable are
Amazing.
made.
love
yeah.
it. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
prefer. Same here. Absolutely.
And
Oh,
phones too.
yeah, I beat literally the first 3 Final Fantasies on my phone.
Nice.
Okay, guys, we need to move on. We got to cut it off. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Just a reminder, if you like this podcast and want to keep hearing it, subscribe and give us a 5-star review. And if you're not already subscribing to our YouTube channel or following us on social media, get on it. You will not regret it.